Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Touching Greatness and a very, very special edition. We have the trainers for you, and they'll suture me up by the end of this show like I've never been sutured before. We have Pete Demers, a proud member of the U.S. Air Force in the Los Angeles Kings organization from 1969 to 2006, 34 years in the National Hockey League, and Gary Vitti, an 8-time NBA champion trainer with the LA Lakers, 32 seasons. And Gary, you know it's not fair because the first year you were in the league, you won a ring, making it look so damn easy. How are you guys?
Great, Ted. Great to be on.
Yeah, really good. Nice to see you both.
Yeah, I appreciate it. What was it like, Gary, getting started your first season? You know, in 1984, the Lakers lost to the Celtics. I was there for every home game. There was some crazy stuff going on with ML Carr, and I don't even know. You probably heard about it afterwards. Somebody threw a drink at him in the last game at the Forum and hit him right in the eye, and the trainers are getting involved. But that was a year before you were there. The next season, you win it all. What was that whole experience like, just to be there at the time?
Yeah, it was almost surreal for me because I was with the Utah Jazz for a couple of years as a part-time assistant athletic trainer. And then I left the league. I took a head job up at University of Portland, and I was there for 2 years. And Riley, they had just lost to the Celtics in '84, and Riley wanted to make a change. And Bill Burka was an assistant with the Jazz when I was there. And Bill said to Pat Riley and Jerry West to give me a call. And they did. And I came down to the Forum. First off, they flew me first class. I had never flown first class before. So I thought that was cool. And then, believe it or not, Jerry West picked me up at the airport in person in a navy blue Mercedes with tan interior. Wow. I remember that was yesterday. and you know, I had never been in a Mercedes before, let alone being driven by Jerry West. Takes me to the Forum. At that time, it was the Fabulous Forum.
Yes.
And it happened to be the day that USA Basketball was playing Spain. And everything sort of came together. A few days later, they offered me the job. And I went to the Forum for the second time, first time for the interview, second time I was actually employed there. And that's when I met Pete, and he let me know that he was the boss.
Okay, Pete, before you met Gary, like a decade before, more than that, how did you join the Kings organization from the East Coast, being a Providence guy?
Well, I started in Providence as an assistant trainer. I'd been in the Air Force. I got out of the Air Force. I went to work for the Navy, working. And George Army, he was the trainer of Rhode Island Reds. His helper left, and he needed someone. So I started working 2 jobs. And I was making $65 a week for the Reds, and a little better job for the government. But my passion was hockey. Always has been. So I left that Navy job with lifetime security. I left that, and I went to become assistant trainer with George Army, Rhode Island Reds. And then things just went on from there. And I went to Columbus for a year in the International League. And then, you get called, you meet a lot of people. I was a stick boy when I was a kid, so I knew all the athletic trainers, and they all were trying to help me. And someone gave me a tip on getting in touch with Johnny Wilson in Springfield.
Nice.
He's an Iron Man. He played in Detroit a long time ago. And so then I went to see Johnny, and he hired me, and I was there 3 years. And then the trainer for the Kings, Norm Mackey, he left and went to Atlanta. So I moved into his slot.
Perfect. I remember Norm very well. This is a picture from one of your first actual season with the Kings organization. And look at you. You look like you're about 12 years old there.
I see Larry Regan there.
Yep. Yeah, he was your first boss, I guess, right?
Yeah, my first boss, and we went to Toronto, and the interviewers were all the interviewers were all outside the bus waiting for us to show up, and he told them, "We're going to unleash a secret weapon tonight."
Okay.
We got beat 6-0. It's like when Mr. Cook sent George Allen to the bus in Washington one night, and we got beat
Right.
1-0.
Unbelievable. So when did you guys first meet?
Well, when Gary came to the Lakers.
Okay.
And we're family. We're, we have a great relationship with our players, but we have a better relationship among ourselves.
Right.
There's only two of us, and there's only as many teams there are in the league. There's only one head athletic trainer. So you have a bonding with every guy.
Right. And you had, I guess, one adjoining door that went to the suture room. Otherwise, you were just down the hall from each other all the time, but not always at the same time, because probably most of the time one of you's on the road and one of you's home.
Well, we shared the same training room for a real long time until the Lakers put a little addition on their locker room. They cut it down. They put a training room there, but we shared the same training room and the same suture room, and it was no problem. Because when the ice was in, they couldn't be there, and when the floor was down, we couldn't be there.
Yeah. All right, Gary, who was the boss?
Sometimes we were there in the weight room at the same time that Pete was there.
Really?
Oh, he let me know. He let me know a couple things initially, that the suture room was his, okay, and that we would, they used it a lot. We used it once in a while.
Right.
But he supplied it. And he let me know, you don't have to worry about anything. I will always take care of it. But if you use it, you need to clean it up.
Right.
You need to put sharps in sharp containers, and put other stuff in red bags, that had blood on it and stuff like that. And,
Right.
and I felt like, I'm pretty, strict about myself and how I do things. But I do remember and left the arena without cleaning up the room.
Right.
And he let me know that he was not happy with me. Okay. The other thing, so, you said that Pete was from Rhode Island. That means he's a Celtic fan. You understand that?
Yes.
Right? and he told me that when he retired from hockey, that's when he was going to become an NBA trainer, because it was so much easier than working hockey. And he's right about that. It was, compared to watching him and just the number of guys that he had and the types of things that they had to do, the amount of equipment that they had. I mean, we had shirts, shorts, sneakers, and warm-ups. That's about it.
Sure.
Socks and a jock, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they had all kinds of pads. They had to sharpen skates, bend sticks. I mean, hockey's, but I will say this. I had never seen a live hockey game until I came to the Lakers.
Yeah.
In my opinion, professional hockey, in my opinion, it's the best live sport to watch.
No doubt.
But you have to be there. It loses a lot on television. You don't really realize the speed these guys are moving at, the power, the hand-eye coordination, what they can do with a stick and a little rubber disc. Okay.
Yes.
I really enjoyed being around it. I don't like being cold, so I didn't want to work hockey. Okay. But I really enjoyed going to games and watching Pete operate.
Exactly. This was a program from the early days, and the Atlanta Flames. This was your first year, Pete.
Okay.
What give me a great story from your rookie season in the NHL. Like, wow, I never expected that to happen, kind of a thing.
I can't think of too much, but I remember Bob Pulford. He was player, and he was a coach, and he was really firm guy.
Yes, he was.
He just had to build up the trust. He had to learn that. And I remember the year before I was in. I came to training camp with Springfield, and we had the joint training camp with the LA. All the LA players were there,
right?
And I was fiddling around with the gear and in a spot next to him, arranging stuff. And he said to me, "Do you know what you're doing?" And then next year I became his trainer. It was for 5 years. But
Wow.
he had he had standards that were really high, and you had to step up to them.
Right. Talk about the early days, guys, because you didn't have like 14 assistants lying around. A lot of it was yourselves or maybe one other guy. Isn't that true?
Yeah, I was a one-man show.
Okay.
When I started, I was the head athletic trainer, I was the equipment manager, and I was the traveling secretary. Pat Riley had a saying that his saying was 12 plus 2 plus 1. 12 players, 2 coaches, and me.
Okay.
So there was 15 of us that were either on the court or on the bench during a game. And everyone else, literally everyone else that wasn't one of those 15 people, was referred to as a peripheral opponent. Okay? That included your family, that included other people in the organization because they weren't on the bench or on the court in the game.
Yeah.
And at first I thought it was a little maniacal, but over the years now, seeing how it's grown, like you go to a basketball game and before the game, you got 30 people on the court. Like I used to make a joke that it's like Noah's Ark. They got 2 of everything now.
That's great.
And for me, even by the time I retired, I had a few people on the staff, not nearly the size of the staff they have now. And sometimes it was better, and sometimes it wasn't, because when it's just you, then it's going to get done, and
right.
It's going to get done right. The harder part is not getting it done, but managing people to get it done. And Pete, I mean, he did a lot. He with the equipment, and I'm not just, in those days, you were suturing people, weren't you, Pete?
Well, I don't want to say it, but if you did it now, they'd be living in your house.
Limitations, you're good, man.
Say it, Pete.
We had a couple of guys that looked like Frankenstein. I know Pete sewed them up.
Last year, I went with Dave Gans. He was a player. I went to Tampa with him to go fishing, and his line mate was Dave Andrechuk in juniors and Oshawa Generals. And so Dave Andrechuk got us some tickets, and we went to the Chase Club, and it's an amazing place, $650 for one ticket. And we went in there, and so Dave Andrechuk said to me, hey, there's Phil over there. You want to go and say hello to him? And so I went over, and there's Phil Esposito. I tapped him on the back, and he turned around and said, Pete, you sutured me up. I said, Phil, shh.
Yeah.
I love it. Speaking of, you can't fish half as much as Pete does, Gary, do you?
I don't fish at all.
Oh, at all? Okay. Well, you just opened a can of tuna.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Once a week I eat tuna.
Yeah, this guy, Pete Demers, is like the all-time fisherman. It's unbelievable. Yeah. How did you get to you? Was that something you did as a kid, Pete?
Well, I did it as a kid, but then when the off season, they used to shut things down. We put the skates in mothballs at the end of the season.
Right.
And so I'd go back to Rhode Island, and I would go striped bass and blue fishing commercially, rod and reel. And I had my boat, aluminum boat, and another boat, and different stuff going on. But
nice.
Yeah, we'd sell my fish. We'd sell the fish, and that's what I used to pay my expenses and try to put a little money in the house and go from there. So that's what I did for many, many years before we stopped going back there every summer.
Try to suture up that giant fish on the left there, right?
Yeah,
is that unbelievable?
1,010-pound Atlantic bluefin tuna.
Wow. Yeah. That's like 4,000 cans, right?
The fish, when we catch the fish, they go right in with it, and within the morning, it's on the way to Japan.
Wow, unbelievable.
Amazing.
Okay, Gary, talk about your first bosses, Jerry West and Dr. Buss. You got a couple of stories from the early days that really stand out to you that might not even be in your book that you can actually tell us today?
I was really fortunate to have the owner that we had. Pete had the same owner, Dr. Buss. His philosophy was hire the best people and then let them do their jobs. And probably maybe 2-3 times a year, our paths would cross either on an airplane or in the hotel. And he'd say, "Gary, I want to talk to you." And he'd pick my brain about certain things, and we would have nice discussions. And it always made me feel sort of wanted, I guess, that the owner took the time to spend with me. And then the next one down, from the owner was our general manager, Jerry West. And as a kid, I grew up a New York Knicks fan. I grew up 40 miles from Madison Square Garden. And I was a huge Knicks fan, but I loved the Lakers. And it's because of Jerry West. I love Jerry West.
Wow.
It was California. It was Beach Boys. They wore gold jerseys at home. Everybody else wore white. I just thought they were like the coolest team going. And then to actually meet him, for me, was just a magnificent moment. And then to actually work for him, I can't even tell you what an honor that was. And then to actually become friends with him. Jerry and I were close. I could go to Jerry with anything, not necessarily a basketball or a Lakers situation, but a life thing. He was just such a good guy. He had his, he wrote a book. It's no secret of his battle with depression.
Yep.
But even probably at his worst moments, he would be at his best if you were having a worse moment. And then, of course, there was Pat Riley, who was an extremely intense guy. But I was okay with that because I was intense. And so I understood where he was coming from. And his philosophy at the time was there's winning and there's misery and there's nothing in between. Okay? And I learned very quickly, even though I had been in professional sports before, and of course Division I college sports for years, that I never really looked at it until I was with Riley, that sports is actually built for failure. It's not built for success.
Exactly.
Only one team can win the last game. Everybody else goes home a loser. Okay? Now, it seems like in these days, the finals and lose, everybody's celebrating that we made the season. That wasn't the case back then. If you went to the finals and you lost, you went and buried your head somewhere.
Totally.
You went in your home, you didn't go out in public. It meant everything to win.
Yep.
And so, that was something that I hadn't experienced prior to coming to the Lakers. I think working for the Lakers is different than.
Yeah, well, a lot of that I think is expectations too, and
comes with a.
Right. The expectations from the Lakers was nothing like few other organizations in all of sports would ever have.
That's correct. Yankees, the New York,
exactly. There's
Manchester
only a couple.
United, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just a few.
Yeah.
Pete, what was it like working for Jack Kent Cooke?
Oh, well, he was something else.
Yes, he was.
But he was
pre Gary Vitti.
He was kind to me. I got to know him really well because I was taking care of his neck quite a bit. And I remember he was down there one day in the little training room, and I was working on his neck, and he said to me, he had a unique voice. "We are going to sign Magic Johnson."
Wow.
Well, that's great, Mr. Cooke. I didn't know who Magic Johnson was. In fact, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I never went to a Lakers game ever.
That's amazing.
Never went to a Lakers game, and
That's because you're a Celtics guy. That's why.
Give each team 100 points, play the last 5 minutes, and see who wins.
Right.
Well, it's not that I didn't hear about basketball. It's just that I was so busy with everything else, and when we had time off, I didn't want to go back to the Forum.
Right, but you actually have a few stories dealing with a few of the Lakers, right? Like Shaquille O'Neal, and what were your brief little mentions of those guys in your life?
I remember Shaq came in one day. He came in on his bike, so he came into the training room and he had his check with him. And
I love this.
he had his check with him. He came into my room and asked, "What's this FICA on here? $90,000." I said, "Well, that's taxes." Another time he came in, that was just like for 2 weeks check or something. I don't know how they do their. Another time he came in and he gave me the key to his bike. He said, "Go take," because he knew I was a biker, so he go take my bike for a ride. So I put my gear on and I went outside to the back, and the only way I could reach the handlebars was to sit up on the seat, sit up on the tank.
Right.
So I didn't think that would be a good idea because he had his custom bike made, but he was a good guy, really, really good guy. Easy.
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy.
I don't know what Gary could say, he has lots of stories, but
he's a playful baby Huey, right, Gary?
I can't, putting in and out.
Yeah, you are freezing a little bit. Oh, there goes Gary. Maybe Gary, if you can hear me, go to another room. Pete's got your house now. Those guys are sharing the same house right at this moment, just so we can do this show. And we lost Gary, but he'll be back. There you are. If you want to move into another room, you can move into another room while we're talking if you'd like, because you're freezing on and off. Okay. So maybe the Wi-Fi is not good enough. No worries. You can log out and log back in. It's all good.
Let's try something else.
Okay, sounds good. You can log out, and I'll just talk to Pete because I want to hear, Pete, about your stories with the GMs. Okay, who are your favorites to work with? And one of them's got to be Rogie.
Yeah, I think Rogie and Dave Taylor are right there at the top of the list.
Yeah, exactly.
I had 13 coaches and 14 coaches, 7 GMs, several owners. And I don't know, you just kind of get lucky that they have faith and trust in you and to do the job. But Rogie, he's an unbelievable guy. He came down and went fishing with us in Rhode Island. You saw that picture there. And
here's hold on. I get the picture back, and I lost the picture for a second. There it is.
Yeah, he came down in like 1975 from Montreal, and we caught fish every day. And it was really foggy out. So he couldn't even see the vineyard. But we had a great time. I sent him home with a bag of lobsters and a bunch of fish. So great guy.
Yeah, he really is a spectacular guy. Gary's back in another room now. He's going to end up in every room in his house.
I know it.
It's all right. It's all good.
Are we
guys.
echoing again?
A little bit. Don't worry about it, Gary. You're good. We're still going live, and we'll deal with this as it goes. Bottom line is, Pete, that you're really lucky to work for some special people.
Well, Dave Taylor was just like absolutely amazing. Dave. And I was deeply involved in a Professional Hockey Athletic Trainers Society.
Yep.
Served 3 terms as president and on the board for a long time. And we didn't have an administrative assistant. Now they have 3. And so I had to rely on Marcia, our secretary, to do typing up and all that stuff. And she took a lot of time. And Dave Taylor knew I was involved in this and trying to help us advance ourselves. And he just didn't really say, do it or don't do it. But he just turned his head the other way when I was in Marcia's office.
Wow.
Typing a letter up to the Hall of Fame or to the league.
Yep.
On our behalf. So great guy.
Yep. Yeah. And we will talk about the Hall of Fame in just a little bit. There's Dave Taylor. I'm there with the Triple Crown line. Dave is number 18 for those who don't know. And how great was that line to suture up whenever you needed to?
They were easy to take care of, all 3 of them, real low maintenance. Yeah. good guys. Dave's been down to Rhode Island visiting, and I still keep in touch with Marcel.
Yep.
He always makes comments on my Facebook jokes and
Nice.
stuff. So fishing
Nice.
and that. So he lives in Niagara Falls, and
Yep.
he's a great guy. And Charlie's longtime friend, and still keep in touch with all three of those guys.
Yeah,
That's
class
what's
acts.
in our game. Our game is it's the sense of family is like no other. The camaraderie that we have with each other. It's diminished somewhat now because when there was only one of us or two of us, now there's 9 or 10, and a lot of stuff going on, and as far as the staff goes, but hockey is the greatest game in the world, and there's the camaraderie that we have. I could call a guy right now, any player, and say I'm in trouble, and he'd be on the next plane.
I bet.
I do the same for him.
Yep. No, I get it. And I'm wondering, Gary, thinking about, especially when Pete was mostly alone in the early days, he had twice as many guys as you. I mean, how tough would that be to deal with?
Yeah, there's no doubt that he had to deal with a lot more than I had to in terms of personnel
Yep.
and probably injuries as well. I mean, those guys.
Oh, he's freezing
I
up
think
again.
that people don't quite understand the schedule, for both hockey and basketball. When we play 82 games and play 4 games in 5 nights, 5 games in 7 nights. You look at American football, and those guys, I'm not taking anything away from them. They get beat up. They can really hit.
Yeah.
But they generally have a week to get well, sometimes 2 weeks. Okay. And you got to get them to do something for about 4 seconds, and it plays over. Okay.
Yes.
It's a different thing that you're dealing with, Basketball and hockey are similar schedules, but the sports are so different. I think people don't realize that, when they change a line in hockey, they're on the ice, Pete, a couple of minutes at the most, right? And,
Well, usually a shift is like 45 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, that's how hard they're skating. That, they're gassed at 45.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Talk about yeah, go ahead.
I always admired Pete. I don't think he ever missed a game in his entire career.
That is correct from what I read. Is that true, Pete?
Yeah, I have 2,600, and they had 32, but it's 52 consecutive regular season games. That doesn't count playoffs, which we.
So what do you have, like the greatest immune system in the history of the world or something? You didn't even get sick?
Well, you get sick once in a while, but you just keep going because that's what you do. And then you had no other help to do it. You couldn't call in someone else and say, "Come watch the game, the bench." You did it
Right.
yourself. And we just did that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think when you have a passion for any job, you do it and you just do it. No frills. We know the game is about the players, not about the trainers. So we just come to work every day. And I remember kind of a sad situation. Mom passed away. We buried her in the morning, and I was at a game in Washington that night, and we buried Dad in the morning. And I was at a game in Chicago that night. And I kind of regret that, but I think that's what they would have wanted. And that's the way my brothers planned that. They saw the schedule, and Mom and Dad both passed away while the team was back east. So, just a love for the game. It's fun to go to work every day. You go in the morning, 8 o'clock, and you maybe rest for an hour in the afternoon. Then you got the game at night, and then you hop on a plane, players go to the hotel. I go hang the gear, then go back to the hotel and check on them. And you finish up at 4 a.m. and 9 o'clock in the morning, the other players that didn't play are back at the rink and working on them. And then the rest of the team comes at 11 o'clock. So it's just, when you have fun at what you do and you can't wait to go to work, either it's brain damage or love of the game. And hopefully it's not brain damage.
So, Gary, does this look like fun to you?
Actually, it does.
Only you guys would say
Actually,
that.
it does. Okay? I mean,
You guys are like vampires.
part
The
of being
sight of
an
blood
athletic
gets you
trainer
excited.
is
I could tell you a quick story. And this is a compliment that I received, but
Okay.
we check our egos at the door. And, you kind of want people to know that, like I said, the game is about the players, not about the trainers. But Jimmy Fox was given a talk one night. I don't know if we were at the Kings fan club or what it was, but
Right.
and I was there, and he said one night he got hit pretty hard. He was down on the ice. He was really afraid, didn't know what was wrong with him. And he said to himself, "Settle down. Pete is coming."
Wow.
And I get emotional when I think of that, because
It's nice.
that's the greatest compliment that an athletic trainer can receive, to have that trust.
Yep.
Like for a player, it's about TNA, and TNA is not what you might think.
Yes.
TNA is talent and attitude for a player.
Right.
But for a trainer, it's loyalty and trust. And when that player's playing on the ice, he better hope that you know what to do. So
well said. One of the things, Ted, that we were talking about the job when Pete and I broke in, and Pete before me, so he had to do it longer. I mean, we flew on commercial airlines.
Yeah, that's true.
We stayed like in not great hotels. I mean, we weren't doing Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons in those days. We were in charters.
6.
And now it's completely different. And people would ask me all the time, how did you guys do it? And to Pete's point earlier about the passion and all that, absolutely. The other thing is that you really didn't question it. You knew it had to be done, and you did it. And that's it. You did it. You knew it had to be done, and you did it. You didn't question it. You didn't say that it should be better. We should be doing this. We should be doing that. And then you did it to the best of your abilities. And then sometimes things were put on your plate that maybe were not in your job description. Okay, maybe something that an athletic, like let's say for me with the travel or something like that.
Yeah.
The players couldn't do the travel. The coaches wouldn't do it. They only left me.
Exactly.
I didn't become an athletic trainer to hand out plane tickets and hotel keys. But when you're part of a team, like Pete said, you're part of a family. And when things come across you that need to be done, you do it. You do it to the best of your ability, and you move on.
Yeah.
And also, like a family, sometimes you get in a fight with your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister, but you never stop loving them.
Right.
And I think that's really important for people to understand. And to Pete's point earlier about how closely knit, his teams were.
Yeah. Well, so much of that is it's work ethic is what it really is, and if you have great work ethic, you do whatever it takes to get the job done, whatever the circumstances. Isn't that pretty much sum it up in that respect?
I'd say yes.
Yeah, if you don't have a work ethic, you're not going to last a long time in professional sports.
Exactly. Let's talk about some of the guys with the greatest work ethics that you ever played, or they played with you, alongside you on the bench. Let's start with Kobe Bryant. Okay. God, I miss him. I wrote a whole chapter, a lot about him in my book. And unfortunately, he had the accident just before the book was published. Fortunately or unfortunately, the timing, I added a few paragraphs at the end that I thought were necessary. But Gary, talk about what Kobe meant to the team, his mental and his physical toughness that, I mean, can you ever even imagine anybody coming close to him in that respect?
No, and I wrote a lot about him in my book as well.
Yes, you did.
If you're looking at Kobe Bryant through my eyes,
yes,
there's really nothing special about him as a basketball player. Okay? And I know that probably doesn't sound right to a lot of people, but let me put it this way. Kobe was big compared to me, but he wasn't that big compared to NBA players. He was strong, but he wasn't that strong. He was quick, but he wasn't that quick. He was fast, which is different than being quick, but it wasn't that fast. He could jump, but he wasn't a huge leaper like some of these guys. So what was there about Kobe that he ends up with 5 rings, and more gifted athletes in the NBA had none? And so then you start evaluating these things. And the first thing, that you brought up was hard work. Absolutely. Kobe worked harder than anyone else, but a lot of people work hard. The difference between Kobe was that he worked smart. Okay? There wasn't a lot of extraneous stuff out there. Everything was choreographed. He knew exactly what he was going to do on any given day. And the reason why he knew he's intellectually brilliant, he analyzed everything. And if he wasn't going to be really good at it, then he wasn't going to do it. And so we really don't know what we've lost, because he was on to do other really, really great things.
Yeah.
And his mental and physical toughness is hard to explain, other than he just convinced himself that he could do it. He took the words can't and won't out of his lexicon and replaced them with can and will. He got waterboarded just to see what the big deal was when when all that came out with Guantanamo and the whole.
Right.
He was hanging around with some Navy SEALs. He says, "Okay, let's just do this." He was an enigma, very special. I miss him so much. There's just no one else like him. I've had as well. Athletes under.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're freezing again a little bit here. So I want Pete to talk a little bit about the work ethic of a Wayne Gretzky and what made him special besides his talent, because he's a small guy compared to most of the other guys in the league. And he's just trying to avoid getting hit every 5 seconds while he's out there.
It was amazing how he had switches that he'd turn off or turn on and off. And, he was great with the fans, and he had a lot of pressure on him. He'd come in the morning, there'd be 20 items on the table for him to sign. And he just accepted all that. And, but he was so amazing to watch. I was lucky that he was 8 years on our team. And so I could explain a little bit, like after he'd score a goal, people would say, how did he do that? Well, I knew how he did it, because from where I was standing, no one else could see that spot between 2 defensemen and a forward and a stick that was up. And there's a hole in the corner of the net. And if you moved over half an inch, then you wouldn't see it. But I could see it. Other people saw that same situation at other times. But I don't know, and then he had such an accurate shot. It wasn't real fast, but it was shot. He plays the game with his head. And, but he was so accommodating to everyone. He was a wonderful ambassador to our team, a real classy guy, and fun to be around. And he came to play every night. And it's amazing how we could pull up in a bus in beautiful weather in Toronto before he came, and there'd be no one, maybe 1 or 2 autograph seekers outside the bus. And after he came, we could pull up in Detroit at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's snowing out and the wind blowing, and there'd be 50 people outside the bus waiting for Gretz to come in.
So I can believe it. I'm just wondering what was going through your mind the day they announced he's coming to LA, and how that changed everything at the Forum. I mean, you guys started out drawing the Lakers on a regular basis. President Reagan, while he was president, was sitting behind the glass. I mean, it was just amazing stuff.
Oh yeah, there were so many celebrities around. I remember when they first had the press conference, I brought his jersey to the Sheraton Hotel on Century Boulevard.
Yep.
And that was a great moment for all of us. And then the stars just came out of the woodwork, like from everywhere. And yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah, but how it changed the game, though. You know, there'd be no Mighty Ducks and all that, the teams from the South for who knows how many years.
Yeah, exactly. But when he was on the team, it made everyone else a better player because he played so hard and so focused. He played with his head.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, he came every once in a while. We'd be at the Forum at the same time, and because we didn't have a practice site in those days, so the only training room that we could go to would be at the Forum. And if I needed to treat guys, that's where we would go. And once in a while, Wayne would be there.
It's freezing again, but we can still
hear him.
When
Wayne first came to the Kings, he came in my training room and introduced himself to me.
Nice.
You know, obviously I knew who he was, and he had already won Stanley Cups with the Oilers, right?
Yep.
And he sat on the treatment table and he said, "Can I pick your brain?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "Well, tell me what you think it takes to win a championship." And I'm like, you obviously already know because you won. You know what I mean? You won,
right?
But it told me something about the guy, and I'm not sure what exactly it is—a humility, or a hunger or thirst for knowledge. Just I mean, here's probably the most successful hockey player in the history of the game.
Yep.
And he's asking me what it takes to win. I always remember that. And then I got a story about Marty because I got to tell you.
McSorley?
Can I have the floor for a couple of minutes? Okay?
Of course.
So I love Marty. Okay,
Marty McSorley we're talking about.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes, Marty McSorley. I love Marty. He lived here in Manhattan Beach. I
sure.
See him all the time, have beers with him. He's just such a great guy.
Yep.
It's hard to understand Marty in the sense that when you meet him personally, he's like a really soft-spoken, nice guy. And then you put a pair of skates on him, a stick in his hand, and he turns into this other.
He's a lunatic.
Yeah, a lunatic. Okay. So we're at the Forum on one of these days that I'm doing treatments, and one of my players comes in and says, "Gary, you better go in the bathroom. There's a guy in there, okay, and there is blood everywhere. It's everywhere, and he's pulling his teeth out." And I'm like, I'm busy, and this kid probably doesn't know what he's talking about because hockey players get their teeth knocked out all the time. He's probably a flipper or something. Eldon Campbell was on our team. He goes, "I want to see that." He leaves the training room and goes in the bathroom, and he comes back like literally a minute or two later. He goes, "He's not kidding. You better get in there."
Wow.
So I go in there, and there is blood everywhere. It's all over the mirror. It's all over the sink. It's all over the counter. Okay, and it's Marty, and he's got a pair of tissue forceps. And I said, "Marty, what are you doing?" He said, "My tooth broke above the gum, and I pulled it out." And he showed me like a half a tooth, right? Now that's bad enough. But then he says to me, he's got the forceps in his hand. He goes, "Now I'm going to get the root." Okay.
What?
Yeah.
Marty, real tough guy. Yeah.
Oh boy. And I'm
Great
like,
guy.
You can't do that. Okay, you got to put it back in. Maybe they can say it.
Unbelievable.
But, I mean, that literally is an unbelievable story. But I'm telling you, it happened. Okay?
No,
You know,
That's
but
one of those tough guys you can't explain. I mean, he's a hockey player, right?
We would put sometimes I'd glue them back in with a super glue just to cover the nerve. And if it was
really, would that actually help?
Actually, yeah, super glue.
Wow. Yeah. Where'd you learn that? In cheapo dental school? I got a story.
You have to do, you know, you just do what you have to do.
I know. Yeah. I got my story about Marty. I actually have several of them. This picture here is the same day that the other picture with Wayne and Pete after he scored his 802. I'm in the media. We don't take pictures with anybody in the locker room anywhere during a game or whatever, right? That's not what we do. So I'm waiting for Gretzky at the end of this game after he breaks Gordie Howe's all-time scoring record. I'm the last guy left in the room, only because I'm waiting for Marty. He's always the last guy out of the shower. Does that sound familiar, Pete? You remember that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. He was always the last. I've covered both you guys, Lakers and Kings, for decades. So I know all the ins and outs of what's going on in that room. I'm waiting.
I took him home on my motorcycle one night, a couple of nights.
Okay.
He didn't have a ride, so he was so
late.
I
can believe it. Yeah, otherwise you'd have to take a cab or something probably, right? Yeah, so anyway, so I'm waiting for Marty. I didn't have a deadline. I'm radio, so my deadline is the next morning. The newspaper folks are out of there, you know, so I didn't have to worry. But I wanted to comment because he's the one who passed the puck to Gretz, and they were buddies, and I wanted some comments from him for my show the next day. So I was there like 2.5, 3 hours way after the game, still in the locker room. You can't do that anymore. And finally before he comes out, Wayne comes back from all of his NHL stuff and his team stuff. And he looks in there and he goes, Ted, what the hell are you still doing here? And I said, I'm waiting for your damn buddy, Marty. He's still in the shower combing his hair or something. He sees one guy left in the room, and it's the Kings photographer. And he goes, come over here. Ted's the only guy who didn't take a picture with this stupid puck. And that's how we got that picture.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of Marty stories.
Yeah.
They're in my book, but it's not going to be published until after my death.
I love it. I think I'm going to have Marty on one of my shows. I talked to, or I texted with Tony Granato today. Pete, I mentioned that earlier. He says hello to you. And I think we're going to do a 93 Kings show with Dave Taylor and Kelly Rudy and Tony and maybe Barry Melrose if I can get him on. It would be really wonderful.
You know, Tony's an amazing guy. You know, I was encouraging him not to come back after he had that brain issue. And like he called me 2:00 in the morning. He said, I'm up and home in Manhattan Beach. And he said, I'm looking at the team picture and I can't recognize my teammates.
Oh,
so I said, we need to call 911.
Yeah, that is not good.
You know?
That is not good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to ask, what's that?
Then he came back to play.
Yeah.
He recovered. Yeah.
It's amazing. But he's a hockey player. That's what he does.
With his nails. Yeah.
Some of these guys will come back long after they're gone. They'll still come back and play somehow. It's unbelievable. Gary, talk about Kobe's toughness, please. Torn Achilles, dislocated fingers. I was there for all of that. And I'm still amazed that I actually witnessed it, and it's hard to believe.
I guess, you know, everybody makes a big deal about me reducing that dislocated finger.
Yes.
But that's really nothing compared to the Achilles thing.
Right.
And so, as Pete knows, and if you can see the injury happen, you have a pretty good idea what it is. Okay. Yep. If you didn't see it, then you got to get a history, you know. Yep. And I saw it, and I was pretty sure, you know, because he grabbed his Achilles and the way, you know, he was on the ground. So I get out there. I said, what's going on? And he said the telltale words. It felt like somebody kicked me in the back of my leg. When I looked back there was nobody there. Whenever you hear that from somebody, you know that they've ruptured their Achilles tendon. And so that's what I said to him. I go, well, that sounds like an Achilles. He goes, yeah. He goes, it's my Achilles. And then this is what he says to me. He goes, I reach back there and try to pull it back down. Okay. Really? Okay. Now, I've had a lot of guys rupture Achilles. No one's ever said that to me.
I'm
okay?
sure.
And it's not like it rolls up your leg. So I don't even know what,
right.
You know, what he was thinking. But I go, well, it doesn't work that way. He goes, yeah, I know. And then he says to me, well, I tried to walk on my heel to see if I could run on my heel to finish the game. I said, it doesn't work that way either. He goes, I know. And then he says to me, well, can't we just go in the back and you can tape it up and I could finish the game? And I said, no, it doesn't work like that either. I said, but here's how it works. You were fouled. Right? That means 2 free throws because we were in the penalty, right? They were in the penalty. And I said, if you want to shoot the free throws, I'll let you shoot the free throws. You already ruptured your Achilles. You can't really make it worse standing there shooting a free throw. You're not going to rupture the other one.
Right.
If you don't want to shoot them, that's fine. But then Mark Jackson, who was coaching the Warriors at the time, they're going to pick the worst free throw shooter on the team. We're trying to make the playoffs. No, I'm shooting them. I said, okay, good. Here's how it works, okay, these situations. Make or miss on the second free throw, we're going to foul. I'm going to tell the officials. I'm going to tell their coach. If that's going to make a dead ball, and then I'll get you out of the game, and we'll take you back to the training room. He says, okay. Before I knew it, now this happens in front of the Warriors bench. Before I knew it, he's walking back to the Lakers bench during the timeout. He didn't need to do that. There wasn't anything.
The last thing you want him to do is walk one step, right?
Right. Okay. He didn't need to hear anything that Byron Scott was saying in that huddle because these free throws are coming straight out of the game.
Yeah.
But he walked all the way back there. Now he's got to walk all the way back to the free throw line, which he does on a ruptured Achilles. Shoots the 2 free throws. We foul. Get him out of the game. Now we got to bring him back to the training room. So I go back out on the court and I meet him. And I said, you want a chair? And he looked down at me and he said a word that starts with an F and ends with a K. And it's not fire truck. Okay.
Yes. F-U.
Well, yeah. Followed by Paul Pierce.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Because in 2008, Paul Pierce went off the floor on a wheelchair, and then came back in the game and kicked our ass.
Yeah,
okay?
I'll never
he
forget
walked
that.
all the way back to the training room.
Wow.
As soon as he got in the training room, he lost his mind. Okay, throwing Gatorade bottles, we're ducking. I mean, he let it all out. By the time we left that room that night, he had already decided he wanted to repair the very next morning. He didn't waste any time, not one day. The next day, he had his Achilles tendon surgery. And then Vanessa and the girls came down the hallway, and they, the security came to me and said, Vanessa's out in the hallway. I said, okay, we'll put her in my office, because I had a door that went from the hallway into my office, and then another door that went from my office into the training room.
Right.
Put her in there, close the door. And then at some point I went to Kobe. I got Vanessa and the girls in my room. When you're ready, I'll bring them in. And it was like he flipped the switch and went from being devastated to being completely 100% normal and loving to his girls. He didn't want his girls to see him upset like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
That's all right. And I've seen that switch get flipped a few times.
It's,
I can't tell you how many times, Gary.
Sometimes,
No, I get it. I can't tell you how many times that I covered your games, whether it was at the Forum or at Staples Center. Kobe, obviously, early on in his career at the Forum, just for a couple of years, I guess. But it was when Vanessa would be sitting out front. She'd be the only wife there. Many, many, many nights. Just her sitting in a folding chair, waiting outside the locker room. And I would see Kobe do a flip the switch so many times, from like getting pissed off at some stupid question that was asked to him in the locker room to all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm husband and dad now. Let's go.
Yeah. Special.
Yep.
Just so special. And it's not like we didn't appreciate it. We knew what we had, but we just probably had for a lot longer than. I wasn't supposed to outlive Kobe Bryant. That's not right. We retired on the same night, 2016, and I said to him, because I got him when he was 17 years old. I had him all 20 years of his career. He was the youngest player drafted into the NBA at 17, and he remained the youngest until we drafted Andrew Bynum, and then Andrew became the youngest. So if nothing else, I'll go down in infamy as having the two youngest players ever drafted.
Wow,
unless they change the rule.
Right.
Somebody else can win. But my line to him as we walked off the floor together was, I watched you grow up, and you watched me grow old.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a great line.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we hugged it out, and
nice.
We remained. We talked a lot after, he retired. It was 4 years before we lost him.
Yeah. And you guys had so much in common, but Pete, talk about the respect that you have for the player, for what they go through, and then in return, the respect they have for you, because you're the one to take care of them when they need you, and they just lead. It's all about trust. You got to trust whoever you're with. You got to trust your doctor or whatever, right?
Well, we're a team. When we're family, but we're also a team, and we're only as good as the guy that's next to us. And so that's the way you have to look at it.
Yeah.
But when it's so much fun, then it makes it a lot easier, and we respect each other, and they respect us. I mean, there's character. There's players with great amount of character, and then there's character players. Character players are the funny guys, and that's what makes it fun. You can't wait for that guy to come in to see what he's going to say this morning. So, yeah. But
because you're a character doesn't mean you have character, right?
That's true too. Very much so.
Since getting back to the family end of it, with our sport, which makes it unique from other sports, is from 5 years old, they've had family involvement. You just can't, like in basketball, you can throw a basketball out in the backyard and they'll do some hoops and stuff. Dad might come out or not. But same with baseball, football. But in hockey, dad's right up with you, mom's up with you. They're driving you here, they're driving you there. You have gear. You got 5 a.m. You're in Lake Arrowhead one afternoon. Next day, you're in San Diego with your mom and dad. And so that bonding and character that builds in these players. And by the time they get to our level, they're highly respected, and they have respect for people around them.
Yeah, I want to ask.
They're gentlemen.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask Gary about the Magic Johnson HIV newser, which I was at in 1991. I'm sorry, you
broke up. I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, the Magic Johnson HIV news conference in 1991. I was at Jim Healy, the radio guy. We just did a special tribute show to him with his son a couple of weeks ago. And Jim had a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame that day. And we're at his ceremony, and our pagers went off in 91, right? Saying, you need to get your asses down to the forum, and like now. And I remember, from your side, it was totally different. From mine, it was like the fire department was there. They would only allow so many people in the forum club to do the news conference. Otherwise, it was too many people for, it was a fire hazard, and you had to get there early. So I hustled down there to get there. What was it like in your mind leading up to that day? I know you've told the stories. We're not going to get into the detail, how it happened and all that. But what was in your mind that day thinking, this is actually a reality? How do we deal with this from a personal standpoint and a team standpoint?
Well, prior to that news conference, I had already known.
Right.
For 2 weeks. There was about 7 people that were in this inner circle, and so Magic and I had a private meeting the day after he found out.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it might have been 2 days after he found out and 1 day after I found out. And so we had talked about it, and he said to me, because I was really struggling. You had to understand, we thought this was a
It
death
was over.
sentence, okay, that he was going to die, and it was going to be an ugly death, okay. And I said to him, I said, how you doing? I said, because I'm not doing well. And he said to me, I don't want you to worry about me. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to do something really good with this, and I'm going to beat it. And I just thought he was in denial.
Right.
I mean, so now we have to figure out what are we going to do? For starters, he had to get retested. Suppose it was a false positive, which was very doubtful. The doctors told me, because I asked them, what are the chances? And they said, very, very doubtful, but we're going to run it. And so we didn't want to tell anybody anything. And then the second thing was, well, what are you going to do about it? The guy has HIV. I mean, is he going to play? Is he going to retire? How's he going to do it? Blah, 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 blah. And so there is, this meeting of the minds and lots of conversations within a very small group of, like I said, about 7 people. It finally was decided that he would retire. And the reason why is because there was a lot of women out there that he didn't know how to get in touch with them. Right? Yep. And he felt, and he did have a responsibility to let them know. And the only way to do it was to go public. And so we were going on the road, and Lon Rosen called me and said, Magic is going to address the team. I think it was like a Thursday or something that we were leaving to play on the road on a Friday.
Right.
And he's going to meet the team because he hadn't been around for 2 weeks.
Wow.
No one saw him. Okay?
And no one said anything.
Right. No one said anything. And the 7 people that knew did not. No one.
Well, the players must have been going crazy. Like, where the hell is he?
Yeah, we told everybody he had the flu. Okay?
Right, and don't call him. Let it.
Yeah, leave him alone. So
wow.
So he said, Magic wants you to get a room at the airport, and he's going to come in and address the team, and then you're going to get on the plane and fly away, and he's going to go back to the Forum and have a press conference. So he was trying to spare his teammates from you guys. Okay, swarming them. And so that was the plan. In order to do that, we had to tell some other people, okay,
sure,
to plan the press conference.
Yep.
So I don't know how we kept it quiet for 2 weeks. As soon as we told one other person, it leaked.
Yeah, because it was on my radio station, not me. Randy Cardoon, our morning guy, said he got word and he mentioned it.
Yeah, but like, where did he get the word from?
I have no idea.
We don't. At least I don't know who the leak was. So anyway, we were at the Forum. I'm sorry, we were at Loyola Marymount practicing, and the AD comes down, Brian Quinn, and he said, "Jerry West call. You need to call him immediately."
Wow.
Privately. So I go into their training room. I call Jerry, and he says, "You go out on the court. You stop practice. You tell all the players and the coaches to get to the Forum by, I don't know, 2 o'clock or something. I don't remember the time, and not to speak to anyone. And don't tell them why." Okay? Jerry knows about the HIV thing. He knows that I know. So I go back out on the court, stop practice, Mike Dunleavy, right? And I got to tell all these guys, whatever plans you had today, forget about them. Okay, you need to be at the Forum. It's mandatory. Okay?
Wow.
Why? I can't tell you why. Okay? And Dunleavy's looking at me, and I'm like, I can't tell you, But I will say this: what you hear today will change your life forever.
Wow.
So we are literally driving out of the parking lot of Loyola Marymount as we're watching media guys drive in.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we're crossing paths.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
So we go to the Forum, and some guys are listening to the news on the radio. Now they know because it's been leaked, right? So they is what's being said.
Right.
I don't know if it's true or not.
Exactly.
Other guys are listening to music in their cars, so they still don't know. So now we're all in the locker room, and I'm the only non-player that's in there. And guys are coming up to me and saying, "Is it true? Is it true? Is it true?"
Wow.
I can't, you know.
Like wait for the news. They have to wait for the news conference too. Then.
Yes. So what did you hear? So at that point, some guys knew and some guys didn't know.
Right. Exactly.
You know? I didn't confirm it, but to me, it was kind of stupid to keep other guys in the dark while other guys knew. So I said, "Listen, just so everybody's on the same page, this is what's being reported. I did not confirm it. I didn't say he tested positive. I said, this is what's being reported. Now you know. Magic's going to come down and talk to you." Okay. And he did. And he came down and he gave a talk to everybody. And then he went around to each person in the room and hugged them.
Wow.
And whispered something in each person's ear. I don't know what he said. Sure, I know what he said to me. Now, you know, Bill Burka is stoic. He's a stoic man. I'm Italian. I'm emotional. I cry at commercials. You know, Bert, he hugged Bert. I don't know what he said to him, but Bert's legs just buckled.
Wow.
And he had to hold him up. He had to pick him back up.
Wow.
Bert was the second to the last guy. Then he came to me, and I said, "It's okay. You and I already talked about it." And he said to me, "Yeah, but it doesn't make it any easier." And then he went up and did the press conference, and you were there. You saw him. He was. I mean, he
was amazing when you think about it.
Okay?
I mean, I can't imagine anybody else doing it the way he did it, and still in control and still able to tell everybody, "Look, this is just the way it is. We're going to make this. We're going to make the most of what we have, and I'm gonna fight it, and I'm gonna beat it."
And he did.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to outlive us all.
And he's in better shape than all three of us put together times 5. Yeah. He's unbelievable.
I don't know. Pete's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, that's true. But and I'm going to ask Pete now about what did you have to deal with at that time from an HIV standpoint at the same time, because it was literally paranoia in the society. But from you guys' standpoint, I mean, that makes it total. You're one-on-one with guys with their blood, and nobody knew exactly what was going to happen.
I think that's where OSHA came in then really hard.
Okay.
They wear gloves, and I'd wear one glove, and they said that's not enough. And
wow,
just players became more cautious and more aware.
And Gary, didn't you set the protocol for the NBA after that for how you dealt with the players?
Yeah, actually, you know, I went on a learning curve about HIV and bloodborne pathogens, and you know, you're probably much more susceptible to hepatitis than you were HIV.
Okay.
You know, there were several players that said that they didn't want to play against Mark Price, who was in Cleveland, and Karl Malone in Utah, said didn't want to play against him. And guess what people really didn't know, Magic didn't know, those guys were public, but what was happening in our own locker room, players were coming to me and you saying, are you sure this is okay? Because they play against him a few times a year. I got to practice against this guy every single day. And so I'm telling everybody, you're not going to get it this way. You know, it's impossible to get it this way. And it's a hard disease to get. I mean, you got to go out and get it. Okay. Yeah. He did. And so we're in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, playing a preseason game, and Magic gets a fingernail scratch on his forearm. And one of the other players, I think it was Sean Rooks, sees it. I didn't see it. And he says, "Gary, he's got a scratch on his arm." So now there's a timeout. And he comes over and I take a look, and he's right. He's got a little fingernail scratch. It's a tiny scratch. It's a non-bloody wound in a very controlled situation.
Yeah.
Everybody the cameras are on me. Everybody's staring at me. I got the gloves in my pocket. I'm the one that wrote the protocol for the NBA. I broke my own protocol, and I treated him without gloves because I was sending a message.
Yeah, and that picture was on the front page of everything, right?
Yes. Yeah, and yeah. Everybody was watching, and Magic saw everybody watching this, and he decided to retire again.
Yep.
Because he felt he was hurting the game. If he didn't retire, it probably wouldn't have been that big of a deal.
Yep.
But because he retired, he was on the front page of every newspaper in the world, and he wasn't alone.
Yeah,
I was on there with him. Okay?
Exactly.
With the headlines of HIV positive player being treated by athletic trainer with, without gloves.
Right, exactly. Now you're the bad guy all of a sudden.
I mean, there's ways to do this. I use a
Right.
6-inch cotton tip applicator. Pete knows this. We sprayed some tough skin on it in those days and painted the skin around the wound so it was sticky, and then you put a Band-Aid on them. You can hand a gauze pad. If the guy's bleeding, you can hand a gauze pad to the player and have him put the gauze on his own bloody wound. He can't give himself HIV, right? So there's ways to do this, and I did it. And I purposely didn't glove because it was sending a mixed message to all these players that I'm saying you can't get it that way. Well, Gary, if I can't get it that way, I don't see any blood. Why are you putting gloves on? Okay.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to answer that. Okay. And so that's what happened. And then, like Pete says, OSHA came in, and my understanding, Pete, from Rhode Island, that it was a doctor from Rhode Island.
Okay.
Anonymous, probably a Celtics fan, right? All Rhode Island Celtics fan, that filed a formal complaint against me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was investigated by OSHA for a year.
Really?
And it was fine. I mean, they said you did a great job, but the reason why it took a year is because when OSHA comes in, the HIV thing opened the door, but as soon as they walk through the door, then they investigate everything. Yeah. So they go into the forum, Dr. Buss on the forum. Do you have the right signs? Are people bending their knees when they're picking up heavy stuff? And it was a real problem for our owner. But he was so supportive of the Magic situation and my situation and why I did what I did. Because David Stern, the commissioner, was really angry with me. And I write in the book that David handled this really, really well. I mean, he educated the league, almost the world. I mean, right down to our ball boys. The NBA really took this thing seriously and handled it very well. And I don't think he ever got the credit for that.
Right.
And my prized possession of all the memorabilia, which Pete is sitting in the room there, is a letter from Adam Silver when I retired, thanking me for handling the HIV situation the way I did.
Right.
And I put the letter in the book, and he said that I helped remove the stigma, for HIV positive people. That really meant a lot to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's an emotional.
Yeah.
I mean, even though the Magic's going to outlive us all, but when I think about that time going through that, it was really a very emotional time in all of our lives.
Well, what you guys don't know, like when I walked into the Forum Club for that news conference, I got there probably 45 minutes before Magic walked in, right? So there's already at least 100 people when I got there, and whatever they could squeeze in like sardines to get them in there until they closed the door and said, we're not allowing anybody else in. And I walked in, and I'm telling you, I saw cameramen and reporters in the back of the room. They were crying. This is 45 minutes before Magic ever walked in. And it's like, wow, I've never, ever seen anything like it before or since. And it was incredible. Pete, what was going through your mind when that happened? Did you talk to Gary at all at that time? And, just thinking, okay, well, here's a guy who's dealing with the worst. It could happen to you too on your team.
Well, we knew that, OSHA was going to be coming our way also. So, and then we
Right.
had we both used the same facility. So
Right.
we just got together and make sure everything is clean and good. And getting back to the glove situation, we patch a lot of guys up on the bench, and it's impossible to put a steri strip on with gloves on. It's just absolutely impossible.
Yep.
So, and people don't realize that. But yeah, you just have to kind of go with the flow. And the only thing constant in life is change, and you have to adapt to it. Whether you have one or two trainers, or one trainer by himself, or 10, you just have to adapt to how things have changed.
Yeah, and we're not going to get into the politics of today because it's insanity. But I'm wondering, Gary, it was all about perception with you, with or without the gloves, right? Mm-hmm. It's perception. Nobody knows. Nobody's in medicine except for, the elite of the doctors and you guys that do it every day. Everybody else is like, oh, well, I guess if he does this, it must be okay. Or if he doesn't do that, it's not okay. So how much of that was perception then and what's going on now without any specifics?
Well, I think it's all about perception, and very largely, I had a lot of support, positive support.
Sure, that helps.
But there were like a couple of letters that I got that, people chastised me for not gloving and saying things like, I've seen people die from HIV and what you did was, frivolous and sending the wrong message and that kind of thing. But the vast majority was very positive. I knew what I was doing, okay? And I knew how to do it. And the reason why is because it was discussed.
Right.
We had team physicians. We just, hey, if this happens, these are possibilities. Like I said, handing a gauze pad to the athlete himself, which gives you time to get the gloves on. In basketball, you only get a 20-second timeout, right, to figure out what's going on. And, to Pete's point about steri strips and Band-Aids with, wearing a rubber glove, it sticks to the glove. You just can't do it. And then Dermabond came about. So Pete was talking about super glue. Dermabond is like a sterile super glue that you can use on wounds. And that changed a lot. Now you could put gloves on, and try to approximate the wound and then put a layer of glue, and you could literally get it done in a 20-second timeout if you work fast, and especially if you have somebody else helping you, if you have another set of hands, right? They're handing you things that you need. So it's everything's changed. I mean, everything's changed. Some for the good.
Yeah.
Some not so good.
No, I get it. That's the world. What are you going to do?
One of the things, like I'm looking at Pete and what's behind him.
Yes.
And you got 3 of those 4 jerseys. You got Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant really only played for the Lakers. Kareem played a few years with Milwaukee, but he's mostly identified as a Laker. Okay. Michael Cooper's going into the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Only played for the Lakers. James Worthy's in the Hall of Fame. Only played for the Lakers. Byron Scott, great NBA career and coaching career. Only played for the
Jerry
Lakers.
and Elgin.
Jerry, Elgin. It's really interesting, isn't it, that in those days you got a player in basically almost his whole career. Maybe at the very end of his career they latched on for 1 or 2 years as a veteran on some other team, just to make a couple more dollars before they retired. But for the most part, a lot of the players identified with one franchise, which enhanced this whole family thing that Pete talks about. When you have a revolving door of players, it's hard to get a deep relationship with somebody who's only going to be on your team for a short period of time.
Yeah, it's a new era.
It's completely different.
It's all about money, though. It's money.
And Pete even more than me. But when I came in, there was 23 teams. There was 12 players on a team. You do the math. What is it, like 276 players or something? Now you have 15 players on a team. You have 30 teams. You have 450 players in the NBA, and they're switching teams all the time. So it's a different league. It's a different game. The game's played differently. There's no real low post game. A guy with his back to the basket like Kareem or Shaq. Probably the most important position on the floor is the stretch four. The four-man was the power forward back in the day.
Yep.
Okay? That was the fifth option in the offense. Now it's the first option. Their job was to play defense and rebound. Kurt Rambis, for instance, and AC Green on.
No, I mean, you can't even compare it's such a the physicality's less, and you can't touch anybody, and I mean everything is different.
Yes.
We only got about 10 minutes left, guys. I want to get into a couple more things. Pete, miracle on Manchester. Okay. Tell us, what was the feeling that day, which basically that game, you could say it changed the franchise before Gretzky showed up, and he was in that game, but just for the other team.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting to come back like we did.
Yep.
And I think Jerry Buss, I think he was the owner.
Yeah, he left it after the second period.
He left after the second period, and that was pretty exciting.
Do you remember what the room was like, though, at all? Like afterwards, was that like, because you won one game, you still had a long way to go, and I know you had to fly back with the Oilers on the same flight, like within a few days or something.
Well, you celebrate at that time, but you
like 10 minutes.
That's right, like 10 minutes, and then you got to focus on what's coming ahead of you. So
right,
that's the way we roll in hockey. So,
yeah,
but that was real exciting.
Unbelievable.
And Daryl Evans, dancing around the ice and everything.
Yeah, I had Daryl on my show here about a month ago. We had great stories about it. It was just an incredibly special time. It's one of the highlights, separate from winning a cup, of all time. I want to get a couple of quick stories from you both. Pete, talk about Bob Miller. I want to hear the play-by-play story. You got something like traveling with Bob. I mean, he's just a funnier than hell guy, and he must be a ton of fun to travel with.
He has we're such great friends. We talk all the time and visit all the time. And
good. Yeah,
he's such a great guy. And Judy.
Yeah.
But he has that wit about him, like Nick Nixon has. Same thing.
Yes.
And,
yes.
I guess that's what they're trained at. But Bob's a great guy. We've gone on lots of trips together, cruises and stuff, and
nice.
Visit a lot.
And Gary, do you have a Chick Hearn story? Because nobody liked Chicky, baby.
So when I got to the Lakers, Chick sort of adopted me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I became like his guy. We sat together, so everybody had a flying mate, right? So
right.
The Magic and Cooper sat next to each other.
Yep.
Rambis and Kupchak sat next to each other. Mike McGee and Larry Spriggs sat next to each other.
Yep.
Well, Chick and I sat next to each other on every flight. And early in the morning on the road, having to go to the airport to check everybody in before they got there, right? Chick would always be waiting for me in the hallway with a cup of coffee, and it didn't make a difference how early I got up. He beat me. Okay.
Okay.
So we became very close, and his son's name was Gary, and he passed away at a young age. And I often wonder if maybe that had something to do with it, that he kind of looked at me as a second son, and
right.
He was significantly older than me in a completely different generation. But we were about as close as two people could be from different generations. The problem was he was not part of that inner sanctum. He wasn't part of the 12 plus 2 plus 1.
Oh, okay.
So there were times when there were, say, injury situations, and Coach Riley did not want anyone to know about certain things. He didn't want the other team to know. And so we wouldn't tell people outside of the inner sanctum.
Right.
But then eventually, we'd have to release it, right? Because the guy's not going to play. and then Chick would get mad at me because
why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, but he would say it on the air. He would say it on the air, yeah. So he said Ted Sobel's not playing tonight. We didn't know. Gary Vitti didn't tell us anything.
That's funny. I could just see that now.
Yeah.
You remember when this happened before Shaq was with the Lakers, but he was with Orlando and they were going to do a pay-per-view one-on-one, him against Hakeem Olajuwon. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, it happened like during the off season, right? And it was run by Shaq's agent and the whole thing. Anyway, we ended up going to New Jersey and setting up at a casino, and we were going to do we did the publicity and Chick was going to do the play-by-play. So he flew with Marge all the way across the country, and the night before it happens, we start hearing rumors this might not happen. And we had no idea what was going on. Well, the next morning, it was supposed to be a Saturday morning in Atlantic City. I'm going down to the hotel in the elevator. The elevator door opens, and there's Chick and Marge. And he goes, Ted, and he threw about 500 F-bombs towards me and said, what the F is going on? How come we're not, did you hear what's happening? And I had to calm him down. We had breakfast together. I'll never forget that. And he says, I flew all the way F over here for nothing, and they canceled the whole thing because Hakeem had like some kind of an issue that they said would be a problem with the league because this was a non-league thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll never forget that. That was Chicky, baby. He was so great. I got a chance to work with him a little bit on the air. Not my voice, but like I got to help him out with notes and stuff when some guys are on vacation. I filled in, and he just treated me like a king. It was so great. It was just great. Anyway, hey, we're down to the last couple of minutes, guys. Since you each worked with some of the greatest athletes of absolutely all time in any sport, I'm just wondering, are there things that stick out in your mind on a regular basis that you learn from them that you can pass along to others?
My big thing is talent is the most overrated thing in life.
Got it.
And going back to like what I said about Kobe.
Yep.
So many guys come through that are so talented, but for whatever reason, they never reach their peak performance. And so there's all these other aspects that are so important in becoming a champion. Right?
Yep.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I think if it's hard, you wonder why guys, some nights they play and some nights they don't want to play. And that's, like I said, there's no ego here. It's all about, if we didn't come to play every night ourselves, you could have real problems on the ice or whatever, or on the court. So,
right.
And it's guys with an amazing amount of talent. Some nights they just don't want to play, and they don't, I could never understand that. I had always had trouble dealing with that aspect.
No, I get it. Totally get it. There's no ego here, guys, but I'm going to be Pete's ego. This is your Hall of Fame plaque. And Gary, how proud are you of this guy being the first trainer in the NHL to go into the Hall of Fame?
I can't tell you how proud I am of Pete, and not just as being a talented athletic trainer, which he is, but the people should know that this guy's got a heart larger than maybe anybody that I know. He goes down to the LA mission. He feeds the homeless. I mean, Pete is really, really special human being. As long as you're not a fish, okay, he would do anything for you, anything.
Yep.
And I'm just so fortunate that it was him, you know, that was at the Forum and the Kings trainer, and you know, he opened up his world to me.
Yeah.
I'm a really lucky. I'm a lucky guy in many ways, and that is certainly one of them. And it didn't go unnoticed, and I've told him that, and I love him.
Yeah, you love him, but your Wi-Fi just killed him off the off of our screen for a second.
Right?
I wanted to give Pete kudos. If maybe he'll come back, maybe he won't. I don't know. I want to give him kudos because the Kings gave him a ring, you know, after they won it in 2012, and he had been retired for half a dozen years. So that tells you a lot right there, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you breaking up?
Might have died. Here he is.
Oh, he's going to join you. This is even better.
My computer went off.
That's okay, Pete. I was just saying congratulations. That it tells you a lot that the team would give you a ring after they won the Stanley Cup in 2012, and you hadn't even been there as a trainer for about a half a dozen years, right?
I've been out of it, first since 2006, and it was 2012. Yeah, exactly.
The ultimate family.
Yeah, that's right. That was a pretty emotional night. And then after Jared Stoll poured the beer down, and I've saved that since '93. Yep. And I had another Olympia beer, which I saved from like in the '70s, just so we could get to the finals. And
I love that.
Time. But is going back to the Hall of Fame, like that was unbelievable to go there with all those legends and see them, and then be recognized there and have a plaque in the Hockey Hall of Fame is just like, you know, it's amazing. And it takes me back in Springfield when I was there. We played the Voyageurs in Montreal, American League team, and I'd gone in early in the morning to hang up the gear and everything, and help the bus driver and I, and that was it. And I walked out to the middle of the ice between the benches, and I looked up and I see all the plaques, all the banners, Montreal Canadiens. And I've been a fan since I was a little kid, around the rink since a little kid. And the first guy to skate by was John Beliveau. And like, you know, I get emotional when I talk about it.
No, I love Jean Beliveau. I even have a picture here. I don't know if I could share it, but I had a chance to talk to him when I went to the Montreal All-Star game back in, I guess it was, I don't even remember anymore, 2008 or whatever it was. But he was an amazing guy, an ambassador of the sport, an ambassador of all sports. That's how great Jean Beliveau was.
I told him about that. I used to go in the afternoon and work out in the Canadiens dressing room. He was retired after that. He came in one day and said hello, and I introduced myself with a French name. I have already. I'm my friend, you know.
Yeah, so Demers.
I told him that story, and he gave me a hug.
Nice.
And I started to cry right in the Canadiens dressing room.
That is so nice.
That's what, and Gary knows, like, we love to go to work. We can't wait to open that door in the morning and throw it at us. We want it, you know, and you know, it's so much fun. So I'm blessed to have had my health and to be able to keep going as long as I did, and have some understanding coaches and general managers and owners. And it changes so much. Our coach comes in, he wants his own guy.
Yeah.
In fact, Gretzky came in. Rogie saved my life. Gretzky came in, and you could understand he wanted his trainer, Peter Miller. And Rogie said, Pete Demers is our trainer.
Wow.
And, you know, I thank him to this day. I'd be gone.
Right. Yeah.
And they hired Peter Miller, and they made him equipment manager. So he started doing the skates and everything. And Mark O'Neill left and went to the Ducks. Yeah. So, you know, it's all luck and timing and friends around you. Someone that gives you a chance. That's what the difference. That makes a whole difference. Someone that gives you a chance in life, and we all have those people that gave us that chance, and we need to appreciate them and thank them.
Well, thank you for giving me the chance to do this show. I've been really looking forward to putting this baby together. You guys are incredibly special in Los Angeles forever, and that's just the way it is. I know you don't want to take too much credit for anything, but I'm going to give you credit because you're unsung guys. Always, the athletic trainers are the unsung guys, the glue in professional sports franchises and college as well. And thanks for the time, guys. It's been special.
So happy to do it.
Thank you,
Thank
Ted.
you, Ted.
Appreciate the platform.
Absolutely. This is
Plug on the book.
Yes. Oh, let's do the book again one more time. I got to get that. Hold on. I'm going to put it up here. Right there. It is. Right there, baby. That's it. I've just started reading it myself. I got it just a couple of days ago. Don't forget about it. 32 years of titles and tears from the best seat in the house, and we got a couple of tears out of you guys today, which I love.
Yeah. And of all the trainers in all of pro sports, Gary was one of them.
Thanks again, guys. Good health to everybody. That's more important than anything. And we'll be in touch, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Take care. Thanks for watching, everybody. Touching Greatness with two of the absolute greatest.
All right, man.